Welcome back. All right, so as we get into early December, I wanted to do a video today on a team that's struggling, and the Winnipeg Jets stand out right now as a team that is definitely struggling. They had the players-only meeting after last night's game was done, but we could talk about how they've lost 5 of their last 6. And, I mean, in terms of playoff odds, I know how early it is in the year, but the playoff odds are painting a picture where it's about 50-50 as to whether or not Winnipeg could be there at the end of the season. So, looking at their record, they're currently 13-12, which isn't an awful record. I mean, in reality, it's just they've lost everything in regulation. If they'd lost, say, 4 games in extra time and had those extra 4 points, we might be having a different discussion. But either way, their record this year is not where it was last year. Last year, they were 18-7 through 25 games. The previous season, 15-8-2. The previous year, 17-7-1. And they were 12-9-4 to start the 2021-2022 season. So easily the worst start they've had over the last 5 years, although the 12-9-4 record does show they won 12 out of 25 that year, and they've won 13 out of 25 this year. That's where the, if you lose an extra time, it looks better, comes up. But either way, this is a team that just needs to be better. So I wanted to look at the last 6 games and how things have gone for them. And it is worthy of note that they've lost to some pretty good teams, right? You've got Carolina on the board twice. You've got Minnesota, Washington on the board. They're 2 of the hotter teams in the league as well. And so there is that to take into consideration that they've had some tough opponents. So it starts with them losing at home against Carolina 4-3. They led that one 2-1 after the first. Then they trailed 3-2 after the second. So that lead after the first didn't hold up. Velarde had 2 goals in that game, and Comrie 24 saves on 28 shots. Eric Comrie's playing a lot. His numbers have been okay. Could definitely be better. He is not Connor Hellebuck. That is a part of the reason why Winnipeg's had this tough record lately. Then, still at home, they lose 3-0 against the Minnesota Wild. It's a game that was tied 0-0 after 1, and they trailed 2-0 after 2. Comrie saved 27 out of 30 in that one. Can't really blame Comrie. They didn't have a goal in that game. Can't blame the goaltender when you get shut out. The Washington Capitals, they go to Washington. They lost that one 4-3. They trailed 2-1 after the first, and they trailed 3-2 after the second. So, did not have a lead in that game. Kyle Connor had 3 assists in that game, and Eric Comrie 31 saves on 35 shots in the net. Then, still away against Carolina, they lost 5-1. They trailed that one 1-0 after 1. It was tied 1 apiece after 2, and then Carolina pulled away in the third. Milic saved 30 out of 34. I felt bad for Milic in that game. I thought he had a really good night, but the 30 saves on 34 shots, by the time the night's over, his save percentage not fantastic. And then they won. They went to Nashville. They won that game 5-2. There were shaky moments in that 5-2 victory. They had a big lead, and then they didn't, and they might have frittered it away. They didn't, but definitely some shaky moments. They led 2-0 after 1. They led 3-1 after 2. Sandberg had 3 assists in that game, and Comrie saved 20 out of 22 for the victory. Last night, of course, they lost 5-0 against the Buffalo Sabres, that game being in Buffalo. So 4-game road trip here that wraps up tomorrow night in the 5th game of that road trip. But in the first 4 games of this road trip, they've gone 1-3. In that game last night against Buffalo, they trailed 3-0 after the first. They trailed 4-1 after the second. Comrie saved 11 out of 14. Milic saved 15 out of 17 in relief. Now, tomorrow night they're in Montreal, and we already know that Comrie's starting that game because, of course, he is. I do think that there's the possibility that the Winnipeg Jets look to make a move between now and Christmas. But the upcoming schedule, we'll see if it helps them. So tomorrow they're in Montreal, and if they're going to bounce back and win, Montreal, it's possible. Montreal's record's not been fantastic since November the 1st either. Then on Friday, they're at home against Buffalo. They have to win that game. That's just one that Winnipeg should not lose. I'm saying should not, have to, because they've lost some games recently that you would expect them to win going into it. Then on Saturday, they're at Edmonton. So that's a tough turnaround. They're at home, then they're in Edmonton the next night. Then on December 9th, they're at home against Dallas. December 11th, at home against Boston. On the 13th, they're at home against Washington. And on the 15th, they're at home against Ottawa. So they've already lost once against Washington. They'll be looking for a measure of revenge there. But it is not an easy schedule. As I said, going to Edmonton the night after playing at home against Buffalo is not necessarily that easy. Edmonton's playing some desperate hockey themselves. They need some wins. We know how good Dallas is. Boston plays a tough game, very blue-collar lineup they have. The Capitals have already shown that they can beat the Winnipeg Jets. And then you've got Ottawa, a team that also needs some victories right now. As a lot of teams in Canada having their struggles here and there, Winnipeg certainly not alone in that category. So I wanted to look at the scoring since November the 1st. And this is something that got talked about during last night's game between them and the Buffalo Sabres. They just don't have depth scoring. And losing Ehlers in the offseason is definitely part of what's going on here. I don't know if Ehlers had stayed with Winnipeg, if we'd be having a different discussion. I might still be here talking about how they've had their struggles. Now, since November 1st, Kyle Connor, 14 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. Strong numbers. Scheifele and Morrissey have both played 14 games. They both have 4 goals, both have 10 assists, 14 points. Scheifele is always reliable for a point per game. The problem is not with the top players. Vilardi, 14 games, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points. 7 goals in 14 games. Solid numbers for Gabriel Vilardi as well. The problem is with the rest of it. So Nino Niederreiter, who has been good, 14 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. But it shows that drop-off between your top 4 guys and the rest. And for the Winnipeg Jets, they need an infusion of talent, I think, in that top 6. Iafallo, 14 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Perfetti, 11 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. Definitely a lot of talk about Perfetti and how he needs to get things going. I'm not going to disagree with that. Perfetti should be producing at a higher rate than he has been over the last month. You got Luke Schenn, 9 games, 4 assists. Not bad for Luke Schenn. The fact he's this high on their scoring since November the 1st is troubling a little bit. Jonathan Toews, 14 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. When Toews came back, I remember my initial thought being, I kind of wish he was a third-line center instead of second-line center, because he is older. We know that the offense is tougher to come by as you get older, and that definitely seems to be the case with Toews. He's working hard. He's a good player, but they need a true second-line center, in my opinion, in Winnipeg. They're not the only team you could say that about either. Lowry, 13 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points, not producing like he did last year. Logan Stanley, 14 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Pionk has played 10 games to get his 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. Sandberg, 3 assists in 9 games. I believe all 3 of those assists, right here against Nashville. Outside of that, no points for him in the other 8 games that he's played. DeMello, 3 assists in 14 games. Nemestikov's offense has dried up. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in 14 games. And there are little things I hear when I'm watching hockey games that stand out. And with Nemestikov early in the season, I do remember, I want to say it was Kevin Sawyer that said something about Nemestikov being an offensively minded player. And I mumbled to myself, not really. Nemesnikov is a complimentary player who can score, but he doesn't drive the play. He's not an offensively minded player on his own, and there aren't really play drivers here. You've got Pearson with a goal in 12 games. Nyquist, 1 assist in 9 games. Gustav Nyquist's offense is just gone at this point this season. So there are some players here who can play better. Perfetti stands out, I think, as one that can perform a little bit better points-wise. Nyquist absolutely can. Nemesnikov has in the past, but there isn't anybody here who really drives that play and can control things. For as much as Toews can do, on the offensive side of the puck, he's not as effective as he was, say, 10 years ago, and how many of us are. Now, if you're looking for help from the American Hockey League, I wanted to do a quick little look at what's going on in Manitoba. And Jaeger isn't putting up the kind of numbers that would necessarily mean that at the NHL level he'd produce. 21 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points for him with the Manitoba Moose so far this season. Barlow's having a tough season offensively. 21 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. I was really hoping Colby Barlow would be ready, but clearly needs more time. And with just the 5 points in 21 games, he would not likely change the storyline if he came up and played with the Winnipeg Jets right now when it comes to the offense and driving the play and getting those chances. Lambert, we know there's been discussions about whether or not Lambert wants out. 8 games played for him in the AHL this year, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Brad Lambert has not shown enough, I don't think, at the NHL level to warrant them calling him up and necessarily putting him in, a top 6 or a top 9 role. This is a team that needs a top 6 forward. And I would go as far as to say probably needs a true second-line center, and teams aren't giving those away. As much as that's a discussion in the media, and I keep hearing, oh, this team's looking for a second-line center, and that team, and this team, I'm thinking, yeah, because everybody needs more scoring down the middle. Yep. And it's not easy to find it for teams that have that scoring down the middle. It's not cheap to pick it up. So it's easier said than done. One name that stands out to me as an Abbotsford fan, of course, is Phil DiGiuseppe. 21 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points for him with the Moose. I don't think it would be an awful idea for the Winnipeg Jets to call DiGiuseppe up. He's an energy player. He can play top 6 minutes. He's not a play driver, but he's a bit of a shift disturber as it is. And he might be able to help the energy level for the team. There were times over the last few years where he's come up and played for Vancouver. He's helped their energy level, if not scoring. And it does feel like that's part of what's gone on here with Winnipeg. There just isn't that offensive energy. They don't have that confidence. There's no swagger right now with the Jets in the way they're playing either. They're trailing often, and they're clearly the second best team on the ice when they're playing against Carolina, when they're playing against Washington, against Minnesota. And that's something we didn't see in previous seasons. So when you look at the play driving, and shots can be a bit of a mixed bag, but they're getting 26.4 shots per game. They're allowing 29.2 shots against per game. They're just not driving the play. If you look at the scoring by period, the first period, they're not bad. 24 goals scored. They've allowed 19. Second period, still above water. 26 goals scored, 24 goals against. But you get to the third period, and they're allowing more than they score. They're outscored 32-25. Not very Winnipeg-like numbers. In overtime, they've scored once. They haven't allowed any. So not a lot to pick and choose from in overtime. But this is a team that needs to be better down the stretch, better in third periods. And they don't really have that ability to come back in games. At least they haven't shown it. Because if we look at leading after 1 and leading after 2, this team's 9-1. If they have a lead after the first period, they're in good shape. Have a lead after second period, they're in good shape. If they're trailing after the first, they're 1-6. If they're trailing after the second, they're 1-8. So not a lot in terms of comebacks here. If they score first, they have a very strong record, 11-3 when they score first. If they trail first, they're 2-9. They do not have the horses to get those comeback victories that they would have had in previous seasons. Now, goals saved above expected. I wanted to talk briefly about the goaltending. I do not think the goaltending is a huge part of the problem. Here's the thing, though. Hellebuck has a goal saved above expected of 12.5 according to the analytics on MoneyPuck. Comrie's got a negative 1.6. Milic, a negative 1.7. So the issue is, this is a team that's already having its struggles with scoring. You can get away with middle-of-the-road goaltending if you're a good scoring team. You can't get away with middle-of-the-road goaltending if you're not getting those goals. So I don't think Comrie's played bad necessarily, but he has not been stealing games the way that Hellebuck does, and it's really starting to show that this is a team that doesn't have that offensive depth to keep up with other teams in the West, and without Hellebuck making those game-saving saves and putting up these incredible numbers that Connor Hellebuck does, the Jets may not be a playoff team. This is a team that right now does not look like a playoff team. We'll see if things change coming out of that closed-door meeting they had last night. But really, the Winnipeg Jets just look severely weakened from what they were last season. And it's odd because they actually got off to a good start. They were 8-3 through the month of October. Their numbers were good. They looked good. Everything was going well. And then it just fell apart. And until Hellebuck comes back, they're going to have to figure this out. And while we can have the discussion about how early it is still in the season, you want to get that fixed. You want to get that fixed. So how do you fix this? How does Kevin Cheveldayoff fix this? Because this team, to me anyways, needs at least one top six forward, preferably a center, who can drive the play. It does seem a bit simplistic to say, hey, that Nick Ehlers is doing well in Carolina, but he is. And Ehlers is that kind of all-around play driver that the Winnipeg Jets don't have. I think they're going to need to, go through all their pro scouting notes and try to find some kind of diamond in the rough from another organization. I don't know that you necessarily want to be offering up draft picks and prospects to try to improve things right here, because this is a team that some Jets fans have been pointing out. They look kind of slower and older than other teams, and I don't know that you necessarily can fix that quickly. So the question that I have for people watching this is a simple one. How much trouble are the Jets in? So when I do the panic index tomorrow and there's a panic, how real is that? Is there a real danger this team misses the playoffs, or are they just going to figure this out and turn it around? Will we see their numbers turn around, say, when Hellebuck comes back? Could some of these players that have been struggling suddenly get going? Definitely the work is being put in. I would say that for the Winnipeg Jets, I don't think this is a matter of work ethic. I think it's a matter of talent, and I think it's just a matter of that depth and other teams having just that little bit more than they have, and it seems to be making a difference right now. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.